The world isn't wide enough. Get immersed in the expansive views of the 48-inch customizable panoramic display in the all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid. Explore more at Lincoln.com. Some models, trims, and features may not be available or may be subject to change. Check with your local retailer for current information. Lincoln and Nautilus are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Lil Sweet is self-employed.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40. Carey Murdoch here with you alongside Eddie Radosevich. Josh McCuistion back in studio, his studio as well. As thank you, Lil Sweet, for bringing us in. Josh did not know this, which I find this one of the most fascinating subjects that I've found in quite some time, and that is that Lil Sweet is actually Justin Guarine, who finished behind Kelly Clarkson in American Idol.
That was the very first American Idol, right?
I think so.
I think that's right. The only thing I know about him is he did that horrible movie. They did that horrible movie together.
Yes, Justin and Kelly, I think it was just called.
Yeah, it was like From Justin and Kelly or some crap like that. And I want to say like it was set in like Cancun or something. Like there was some whole thing. But I knew like I've never watched a minute of any of that stuff.
But you know of it.
I know of it, yeah. Like, I literally, this is one of my causes. I hate reality TV. Like, I hate it a lot.
It's understandable. Eddie Radosevich is here freezing.
Am I supposed to know who Justin Guarine is? Did he, like, work in the Rivals Network at one time?
He could be one of us.
No, he was
sounds right.
He was just a random dude that was on American Idol. Everybody loved him.
I got into American Idol there for a while, but...
Carrie Underwood days?
Yeah, and then throughout the last couple years.
Will you watch the new one with Katy Perry and Lionel Richie?
Probably not.
They said they're taking away the bad.
That's what I watch for.
Yeah, you watch to see people be embarrassed.
I probably won't. I do like a good performance every once in a while, though.
I've watched that they have that new show now where like they have 4 people.
Like the one on NBC with
not the voice,
Blake
not
Shelton?
the voice. No, like they have. I think it's on Fox.
Are you talking about the one with Puff Daddy?
Yes, with P. Diddy.
Yep.
And what happens is somebody performs, and then they challenge one of the 4 that have been selected, and they get to they can knock somebody off. It's like the 4. There's P. Diddy. I don't know. I've only watched a little bit of it one time. But there was this gigantic black dude who sang Run to You by Whitney Houston, and it was beautiful. Like, literally beautiful. Like, one of the judges started crying. It was so good. Oh, it was Meghan Trainor. Meghan Trainor just started crying.
It was probably
so good.
That was probably staged.
And then he knocked off somebody. But the whole time, like, he's doing it, you can see every one of those contestants that are left. They're like, holy shit! This guy's gonna. This guy's
gonna
coming.
Kill all of us.
This guy is coming.
Speaking of Kelly Clarkson, have you ever noticed that Channel 5 has the worst Twitter of all time?
I don't follow like News 4, News Channel 4, or KOCO 5.
I do just for the entertainment.
KWTV 9.
They just tweeted out a story. Kelly Clarkson opens up about her decision to spank her 2 kids.
Awesome. Did you see that she and Steve Carell met for the first time at the Golden Globes this year? I don't know why she was there.
I have not.
But you know the famous Kelly Clarkson scream when he's getting the chest wax?
Yeah.
They'd never met before.
Wow.
We actually have a lot of stuff to talk about on the podcast today. Besides Lil Sweet
Yeah, nothing's been happening in Norman the last couple of days.
It has been just an avalanche of news, which we're very, very thankful for. It keeps us from being self-employed.
Lil Sweet is self-employed.
But I don't know, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with Jerry Schmidt? Do we want to start with the U.S. Army Combine, or we want to come back around? You guys decide. I'll let you be producers.
You have to start with Schmidt. That's the lead.
So Jerry Schmidt leaving to take the strength and conditioning coach job, or whatever they're going to call director of sports enhancement is what he was at Oklahoma, which it was a bigger deal than just having the football team lift. Like, he oversaw all the strength and conditioning programs at the University of Oklahoma. So basketball, rowing, all that stuff. Like,
I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a good 7.5. Is that too low?
What do you mean?
Just as far as him leaving, like I'd say it's a big deal, but I don't think the program is going down the drain because he left. I think that maybe time for change.
It's one of those things. It's a big deal, I think, inside the program with the players.
Right.
I think because we are Sooner Scoop, everything's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's just like, where's your strength and conditioning coach hot board? Get it up now. It's like, and I went to if you go to Football Scoop, they do a really good job of tracking. Like, they have a strength section to where they train. Like, the dude with the handlebar mustache from Georgia, from the national championship game, he got the job at Oregon.
Yeah,
he's going to be. He was
that.
an assistant strength coach. Now he's going to be Oregon's strength coach.
You should have to do you should have to take a shot of protein to even log on to Football Scoop.
I bet they have a protein barista bar at Oregon moving forward.
Well, that guy had to. That came out so quickly after the game. That had to have been all finalized even before the game.
Yeah,
how much money did he lose by not waiting until after the game when he became internet famous? Like, he probably left $50,000 on the table.
See, I kind of think that's a mustache that you don't wear that mustache unless you know that you have a job.
Nobody is getting a strength and conditioning job because they became internet famous, though. With that, kids are gonna know and be like, "Oh my God, it's you!" You're because they're not gonna know. As long as Jerry Schmidt has been at Oklahoma, there's no guy that walks on campus I've been waiting to meet you, Coach Schmidt. They just meet him and they're like, "Oh, he's interesting. I like him." They're going to know who that dude is, but he can never, ever lose his mustache or no one's going to have a damn clue who he is.
I'll go on record saying that guy will fail at Oregon, by the way.
Because of the mustache?
Yeah, you need to be – I would think that to be a good strength and conditioning coach, you need to be almost feared, kind of how Schmidt was in his first couple years.
You can't be a caricature.
Yeah, you can't be a good guy. You kind of need to kill a walk-on the first day that you're in. Actually have somebody die on your watch to make –
or at least
can you imagine him standing over a guy on the bench trying to do the weight, and he leans over, he's like, "One more," and he's in their face, and he's sweating, he's all into it, and they see that mustache. You're not gonna get intense. You're gonna laugh.
Exactly.
That's gonna screw you up.
What are you gonna do? Tie me to the railroad tracks, Mister?
Why are you in color? You need to be in black and white right now.
Silent film villain.
Yeah.
Go over and tap in your little tap shoes on the wood over there, sir.
But yeah, Jerry Schmidt leaves, creates a huge hole, just continuity-wise in the program. And I think there's two things here. One, everybody wants to know who's going to replace him. Look, it's strength and conditioning. It is a very important job, but let's face it, it's not it's not. For the fact that A&M gets into a bidding war over a strength and conditioning coach just shows you what position they're in. You really think... I know Ohio State and Alabama, Iowa, Clemson, they're paying their strength and conditioning coach really big dollars. And I think it was shocking for a lot of people to find out that Oklahoma State and Texas both paid quite a bit more than OU paid Jerry Schmidt. But at the same time, man, this is not Bob Stoops, Urban Meyer, Dabo Sweeney territory. This is not Nick Saban versus Urban Meyer. You can find a lot of people to do this job.
We were kind of talking about it right before we started, but I think the guy that they should go get is not too far from Norman, Oklahoma right now, and you could probably get him for making just about what Jerry Schmidt made.
That's a slip.
Yeah, I know. I might go to hell now. I might have to go burn a bridge.
You didn't say who it was, though.
Chris Dawson from Kansas State. It makes a lot of sense.
He's a guy that was brought up to me, one of the earliest guys brought. Not that you would be interested.
It makes almost too much sense that it won't be him. You know what I mean? Like, it makes so much sense. It's so easy that...
Yeah, but, I mean, does it make sense, though? I mean, I'm not saying he's a dinosaur, but he's at Kansas State.
Yeah.
Where you're not really dealing with a lot of high-profile kids.
Yeah, but I guess he worked at Kansas and worked with, Chris Harris is now in the league.
Yeah.
What's the other cornerback's name?
Aqib Talib.
Aqib Talib.
Yeah, they really kept him in line.
Well, he didn't kill anybody while he was in Lawrence.
I think they had. I think he probably worked out the dude that got stuck in the Taco Bell drive-thru. You remember that story?
I don't know.
Like tried to attack someone.
Well,
while going through the Taco Bell drive-thru.
Maybe he was handing out steroids. You need a couple crazy guys.
Oh, you always have crazy guys in strength and conditioning departments. They're all crazy. They love to lift weights for a living. That's not normal.
And run.
I don't even think they like to run. Just
cardio. You have to be a lifter. You can't be more of a conditioning guy.
Just cardio. It's like
there's no marathon runners doing strength and conditioning.
Like, have you ever had a personal trainer? Like, I have, and basically they don't give a shit what kind of cardio you do, just that you do 30 minutes of cardio either before or after you lift.
Yep. Okay, the best story. I've only had one personal trainer ever. Dude's name, Angus.
Nice.
I mean, like, that's out of the playbook manual. Like, and, you would think, like, Angus was a sharp guy, had a college education. Like, he wasn't like the meathead you'd expect. But, like, you're like, really? Like, you're out of literally how they draw up a strength coach. It was ridiculous.
I've had a couple of them. Inevitably, you always get into a really weird conversation with them about the human body because they just think about it all the time. So, like, I remember I got to a point last time I had one, I had lost a lot of weight, and this is I know this is how my body works. This is a stupid conversation to have. So here's kind of what happens, like, with me. When you lose weight, it comes off different places at different times. Like, I lose my ass, and the last thing that comes off are my man boobs. And so, like, I'm working out, and, like, my trainer is getting more and more concerned because I still kind of have man boobs, even though I've lost, like, 80 pounds. And so he pulls me aside one day. He goes, "Dude, I know what happened." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Well, your chest, man, you're just not losing the weight there." I'm like, "Oh, dude, don't worry about it. Like, that's kind of the last thing that goes. Man boobs run in my family. That's just how it goes." He's like, "No, let's talk about what really happened." I'm like, "Nothing really. Did you think that, like, I got a breast enhancement or something, like, and it went bad or something?" He's like, "I know what you did." And I was like, "Okay, just tell me, because I don't know what's going on." And he's like, "Look, you used to do steroids. I understand. That's what happens when you do steroids is, you can get surgery. You can do these." I was like, "Dude, I have never done steroids. Other than having, like, cortisone shots for a torn rotator cuff, I've never done steroids. I do them now, but I never did them then. I just do T-shots." But, like, so it's like you always have these really weird... I can only imagine the type of conversations people have about calves and quads and
said, "Listen here,
pec rolls."
Listen here,
Eddie. You wouldn't like
I can't imagine Eddie's conversations with a trainer. That would be
it's usually terrible. Why am I paying anymore?
You?
Why aren't you coming anymore?
We had this discussion.
I don't know, man.
Today. Like,
I woke up and didn't feel like working out. Sorry.
It's kind of like the message boards. Just because you pay him doesn't mean that you can berate him and yell at him. Your personal trainer.
He's not a counselor as well.
No, like that doesn't, just because whatever you're paying, and it's not cheap to have a personal trainer.
It kind of seems like that's what the strength and conditioning coach is, though, is half counselor, half half listener, half hard ass, and then the other half is the rest of meathead.
sure Jerry Schmidt has gotten plenty of FUs from players over the years.
Oh, I bet he's gotten death threats.
Like, I'm quitting, FU, leave me alone, and just leaving. I'm sure that happens quite. I'll have to pick like Dusty or Gabe Eichert's brains about the worst meltdowns that they've ever seen during a off-season workout. Because there's J.D. Runnels. I bet they've all got some good ones.
There was a really good post on the. I know we always talk about pubbing the board a little bit. There was a good post from Damian Mackey on the board, guys.
Yeah.
I haven't got around to reading that yet, and I saw somebody
really
talk
good
about it.
Yep, he kind of talked about just the relationships that some players have with him, and the other guys it's a little more adversarial, and it's interesting how that dynamic works. Because you think about it, it's amazing that Schmidt stayed as long as he did. That's got to be a really hard job to continue having a working relationship, because you're basically just pushing these guys to completely uncomfortable levels all day, and every time you see them, like there's no. Okay, we're going to go for ice cream and cookies after this. No, you're going to eat a carrot and some water, and you're going to try to recuperate. Like there's just nothing like soft about his job.
And you got to keep doing it every year too. That's why it's just like the fear factor. I don't know how you continue to do that.
Well, and to be honest, that's the biggest part of this next hire. But it's not anything foreign to anyone. Like Lincoln Riley has been around a lot of strength and conditioning coaches. Everyone in that program has, even Joe Castiglione as an assistant, or as an athletics director, they know what you look for, and that is what you guys are talking about. Not so much doing the right exercises to get bigger and stronger, but dealing with the personal relationships with the players. Because, and it's been said many times, and a lot of former players have said this to me over the last couple of days. That is. You spend more time with your strength and conditioning coach than anybody else but your head coach.
So you don't think they're going to go just hire the Coda CrossFit director of Norman?
No, I'm sure they're getting lots of...
God, I can't imagine the meatheadness of the application process.
I'm sure they're getting a lot of applications from...
We actually should
From Steel Gym Tan.
I want to see the application process, and you should actually send in a video to any of our Twitters, and I'll pass them along to Joe C. If you're a CrossFit member and want to become OU's strength and conditioning coach.
Maybe take a voice line. Maybe do that. Do voicemail.
Call in the voicemail.
Tell us why you should
ideas.
be strength and conditioning.
Right.
Probably just a lot of Hans and Franz impersonations.
I have some good friends that do a lot of CrossFit, and they are fairly convinced that it is a cover for swingers clubs. Like that, they're just swingers clubs all over the country posing as CrossFit.
They just travel from city to city to have one big orgy.
It's a big circus.
Because there is a lot of interesting relationships that they tell me about within their CrossFit groups.
I could totally see that.
I've never thought of it that way, and I will never not think of it that way moving forward.
Every time you see some chick struggling to climb a rope, you'll just be like, she went a little too hard last night.
Oh, they're just Mormons, and now they're CrossFitting.
Okay, so let's get into some of the meat of the Jerry Schmidt deal, because I know I've never seen anything create panic like this has. It's like have so many. Not even panic, but just to create just mass widespread hysteria, I guess, over so many different things.
I think it feels like for the fan base, I feel like it's that foundation of Bob Stoops is finally being, I don't know if it's like resurfaced, but it's finally like he was like the last peg that you had in like this pyramid.
Gundy's got to go though next.
He's the last man standing, literally, outside of Mike. But I don't know.
Does Mike count though? Since Mike left,
yeah, that's what I've never really felt like it counts because he did leave.
Well, the other thing is, there's a pretty good chance one or two of his sons are gonna, start their, 10 years at OU.
Yeah, it's a little bit different though, I think.
But you're still gonna have a Stoops involved in the OU program.
This guy's dad is insane. He's always around practice.
God. Anyway, so, but I think let's start with this, and that is, how did you lose Jerry Schmidt to Texas A&M? And I talked to a lot of people about it over the last couple of days. We've had a couple of threads going. I'm telling you guys, since I put up that story yesterday, and even the news yesterday, we all have the app on our phone, but my phone has just been nonstop notifications. I mean, it's one of the most talked about things I think that I've ever put on the board. Just people want to know why it happened, how it happened. Oh, I heard it happened this way. Basically what it comes down to, guys, is OU just didn't want to pay an exorbitant amount of money. Thank you, computer. An exorbitant amount of money for their strength and conditioning coach.
And that's obviously pretty hard for a lot of people to understand, I think.
And I wouldn't even say hard to understand, but just...
They just don't want to believe that.
I don't know. You tell me, is part of it because they feel like A&M beat us, and we would never let A&M beat it? Is it that kind of thing? Or is it... Because no matter what I tell people, and I wrote an article, and I'm telling you, this is 100% right there. And I'm not saying that Jerry Schmidt, being here 19 years, there weren't some people in administration that probably at times didn't get along with him here or there. But Lincoln Riley and Jerry Schmidt had a very good, very strong relationship. There was no being pushed out of the door. I'm just telling you, that's not what it came down to. Is Joe Castiglione has a budget that he sticks to for all of his coaching staff, and paying him $600,000, $700,000, it might be $800,000. That number's floating around out there now. But paying that much money, they just weren't going to do it. They were going to give him a raise and put him in line with the top strength coaches in the Big 12, which he should have been all along. There's no way that he should be making $340 while OSU's Rob Glass is making $425. That's just making you look cheap.
It's one of those situations that I kind of looked at it too.
But it's a money deal. That's what it comes down to.
If it's a money deal, are they also thinking in line of, we need to save a little bit extra money in case we do have to pay Bill Bedenbaugh more if Notre Dame comes after him?
I think that's part of it.
If we have to go look for a defense coordinator and you want to pay, I mean, the price for coordinators is only going up, as we've seen in this
you're
last
not gonna get
coaching cycle.
I mean, Grinch went to Ohio State for $650,000,
which seems like a steal now,
coordinator,
because it looks like Greg Schiano might be going to the NFL.
Yeah,
and now that makes a lot more sense that he would leave to become the quote unquote 10th assistant if he really and actually is going to be the defense coordinator for Ohio State.
But I mean, even if you pull in a young defensive coordinator, the way OU works, if they go and get a young guy, they're not going to pay him $1 million. I mean, when's the last time OU? They've never gone and poached. I mean, Kevin Wilson's the closest thing.
Well, last year before Bob retired was the first time that they actually were like, I felt like they were being proactive and saying, Lincoln Riley, we're going to promote you, we're going to give you another raise.
Yeah, but that was because he could have left. I mean,
right.
When they brought him in from ECU, they paid him, what, $330 or something?
Something around that line, I think. But I'm saying that was the first time that OU had actually looked at their coordinator position as a spot that we have to keep this guy, so we're going to give you more money.
Right.
But I think there are very few schools that don't operate like that. I mean, who's going to pay $200,000 for a guy that's not being pursued? Like, we're just going to give you a $250,000 for no reason.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and the guys, the thing is, and you're right, Carey, there's been so much teeth gnashing over this. OU can find a good replacement. I don't think you can argue that Lincoln Riley doesn't have an idea of what he'd like to do, and B, a guy like Joe Castiglione. I mean, how many bad hires has that guy really made? I mean, he's not gonna sign off on somebody that doesn't have the credentials. Like, they'll find a good strength and conditioning coach. What you should feel good about is that whatever they've done, they haven't spent $100,000 or $150,000 extra that they could be given to Bill Bedenbaugh, especially now that Harry Highstand's gone to the Chicago Bears, and there's a lot of rumors about Notre Dame. Now, does anyone actually think Bill would leave Oklahoma for Notre Dame for anything other than money? I don't. I don't see any reason you'd make that's a lateral move at best. And
there are 15 coaches last year that were paid over $1 million that weren't head coaches. And I do think that we're starting to creep into that territory. And I've said this before. To me, a defensive line coach that recruits really well is $1 million coach.
Yep.
An offensive line coach that recruits like he does and puts that type of offensive line on the field, he's $1 million coach. He just is. I mean, I don't think that the head coaching values are going to skyrocket any further than they have. I mean, look at Harbaugh. I mean, look how much money he's making. Is he worth that? Hell no. Look at what, I mean, yes, A&M went out and paid $7.5 million to Jimbo Fisher, but you're talking about massive programs that are in desperation mode. And Ohio State's not there. Like Ohio State, if Urban Meyer hangs them up, Ohio State's not going out and paying $10 million to bring in a coach. They're not that desperate. They can afford to go out and shell out 5, 6, 7 for a great coach, because if it doesn't work out, they're not under pressure to do that, to go out and make a $7.5 million hire.
And you're Ohio State. It doesn't have to be Nick Saban for you to win a national championship.
No.
It's the same. I mean, to a lesser degree, Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's in that conversation. Like, Oklahoma doesn't have to have the best coach in college football to win a national championship. That A&M, what's history say?
Yeah, and
they've got to overspend and overpay for things.
And look at Alabama.
They're not getting the pieces.
Look at Alabama before Nick Saban.
Yeah,
they were crap, and the reason he's getting paid so much is because they don't want to be crap. Go back to being crap, because they don't have any track record saying, "Oh, we'll definitely succeed even without Nick Saban."
I mean, now they're two really, really great coaches, maybe the two best to ever do it. But you look outside of that, like Saban and Bryant. I mean, Gene Stallings had a nice run, and not to say that Alabama is a blue blood of blue bloods. I get that, but there's not that dominant track record. Like, they don't have, I guess Stallings would be their closest thing to a Bob Stoops. But, OU's got Switzer and they've got Wilkinson, and then there's Bob.
Yeah.
And I guess Stallings is the closest thing, but I wouldn't put Stallings anywhere near Bob's credentials.
No. Not longevity-wise.
No, absolutely not.
But I think the thing about it is with Oklahoma, with Ohio State, I mean, look at Nebraska right now. They're getting into that. If Frost doesn't work out,
it's a dead program. He's not bringing him back.
But I'm saying, if he doesn't work out, are they going to try and pay $7 million to somebody just out of desperation?
Oh, yeah, they probably will. But Nebraska's a dead program. I don't even consider them a D1 program anymore.
But here's the thing. Ohio State,
they have to start cheating again.
Texas A&M, I think Texas has fallen behind, but it's just like Oklahoma to me. Like, they didn't realize how far behind they had fallen everybody else. They built the South End Zone deal. So do they realize how far they've fallen behind in being aggressive in salaries? I mean, I think that's something everybody else worries about with this Jerry Schmidt deal. Like, okay, you didn't want to pay him. It's almost like the Thunder and James Harden. I mean, it's like you didn't want to pay him, a little extra to keep him here and keep everybody together, but then the luxury tax kicked in, and then everybody would have, you would have paid him that easy. Like, Oklahoma, is that how it's going to be with Jerry Schmidt? Like,
no.
Okay, you should have paid him $600,000 because that's going to become the standard here pretty soon.
I don't see lifting weights becoming so refined that. And anyways, he's so archaic that it really doesn't matter. It is kind of funny though, in a way, that will he have never used the new South, like the new weight facility?
No, they've used it.
I mean, they have, but he'll never have gone through a summer with it, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's true.
Or even an off season.
Yeah.
A winter, yeah.
I think so. He was about to get into it.
Better change the key code.
Take his thumbprint off.
Oh, yeah.
It's already done, probably.
Should be. I'd already have his office cleaned out.
But here's the thing. In regards to Jerry Schmidt, I almost did it to Eddie there. Like, I think Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be the next fascinating thing to see. Because, like, if Notre Dame comes guns a-blazing and offers 1.5, what would Joe C do?
You have to match. You can't let him walk.
He's too high profile.
I agree.
I would say
crazy.
he's the most important coach.
I
on
would
the staff.
say if you let Bill Bedenbaugh get away, and I'm not speaking for anybody, I would start to be worried about how do you retain Lincoln Riley if he continues down this road of success. Because
if you're not keeping your best talent
at that point, you're a head coach that feels like he doesn't have a program that's committed to doing the things it has to do to win on the same level as everybody else.
This is kind of a dumb question, but is Notre Dame in a position to offer $1.5 million to an offensive line coach? I mean, how much was?
And do they? Yeah, maybe. Do they feel like they need
how much
to?
you've made right now?
Do they feel like they need to offer? I mean, they could be just like Oklahoma, where they're just like, look, we're Notre Dame. We don't have to pay somebody $1.5 million.
Yeah, that's kind of, and I kind of feel like Brian Kelly's a big enough asshole to say, I'm not paying my offensive line coach $1.5 million. I mean, he may or may not have killed a guy.
Well, he definitely
He didn't help him.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lawsuit that kind of holds him responsible.
Ongoing.
Yeah, we're talking about the scissor lift guy.
It's really hard to know because with Notre Dame being private, it's not
they're private.
It's not put out there. I don't know, though. You have to do everything you can, though, to keep him around.
And everybody's kind of coming up with the figures in their head like, okay, well, Lincoln made less than Bob, so that saved, $2 million there. And then you didn't have an offensive coordinator, so that saved, $1.3 million there. I don't think you can really do that because I do think that Joe Castiglione and OU are prepared for these salaries to continue going up. I mean, I look back at 2012 guys, kind of when Bill Bedenbaugh came in. He came in 2013, but I mean, Josh Heupel was getting paid like $350 to be the offensive coordinator. This was in 2012. This was 5 years ago, and they just recently, like before Heupel got fired, he got bumped up to $900,000. And Mike Stoops got bumped up to $900,000.
And I remember thinking, like, God, that's insane.
Those guys were like at $450 or something before that. I mean, but OU was legitimately, there's a period where they went in and said, okay, yeah, the market is dictating that if you're a program like Oklahoma, your offensive and defense coordinators need to be close to $1 million.
Texas certainly hasn't helped that, just being in the same conference, and now they're paying a defense coordinator almost $2 million.
Yeah, and I mean that's the one thing that you can really point. It's just like with the strength and conditioning. It's like, why was Rob Glass and Texas's guy both paid $425 and Schmidt's making $339?
Schmidt was almost taking a hometown discount over the last couple years.
Do you know what assistant made the second most money in college football last year?
It's something stupid.
Well, it was
it's a coach that shouldn't be making that. I remember thinking that.
What's his name at LSU was number one.
Yep.
Was number two.
He's an offense coordinator, correct? No? Defense?
Nope.
Defense, obviously?
Yep.
Wasn't John Chavis, was it?
He was number 3. Brent Venables, number 2, 1.7.
Yeah.
Well.
Eddie, the guy
not bad for a guy that got ran out of town.
Matt Canada, 1.5.
I noticed that Ed Orgeron is really solidifying himself as a guy that just wants to win maybe 7 games next year.
By the way, John Chavis did a lot with that money he was making.
Yeah. I've been a big John Chavis guy, but boy, he was not good last year.
Well, when you coach at a Colt, that's what's going to happen.
There's been a lot of really good coaches that have gone there to die, so we'll see.
No, it's about to happen again.
Well,
by the way, how good was R.C. Slocum? Like, do we look back and think, wow, he was a lot better than we realized?
Well, that's why I said that. They're celebrating his old man whiteness by hiring Jimbo Fisher. Mm-hmm. He's their golden era.
In a very old style, like middle European way, you kind of predicted the future there.
You think
I'm Nostradamus.
Yeah, that guy couldn't get there, but yes, that's exactly what I was looking for.
a White Knight's going to bring out Revelry in the first game?
Who's the White Knight?
Isn't he closely affiliated with the KKK?
Oh, you're talking about that guy that was having all those things on campus? A&M shunned him.
Did they?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it
Probably
past
wearing
him.
overalls while they did it. Okay, so you've got all that stuff going on. The Bedenbaugh stuff is really just heating up. Like, this isn't even taking over the board yet. It will today, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What has taken over the board, without a doubt, is Mike Stoops.
What's going on? I haven't seen anything on the board.
You
yet.
haven't...
I'm just kidding. It's like every thread.
No, well, not just every thread, but no matter what thread you start, it goes down the Mike Stoops rabbit hole. Like, you can have a thread.
Talk about the returning offensive line next year.
It could be off topic. It could be, should I get an Audi or a Lexus? And it's somehow going to turn into, Mike Stoops probably just crashing both.
Mike Stoops is a Hyundai.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Hyundai.
No offense intended, Eddie.
It's better than his truck. I'll say that.
Oh, man. That truck has seen some things, Eddie.
Well, yeah. I mean, it had seen some things before I
How
hit a
much did
couple
you end up
things.
selling that thing for?
I don't remember.
Did you even
do
get
not
like
remember.
$500 out of
Oh
it?
yeah,
Okay.
I think it was over 1,000.
Okay.
I can't remember.
We're currently, just a little free advertising here. We're currently selling Tiffany's cars. So anybody looking for a big SUV, you just hit up old Josh at Soonerscoop.com.
How many miles you got on that?
About 69K. It's clean,
Nice.
though. Completely dealer cared for.
A little bit of lady puke here and there. That's about it.
Yeah, pure spit up, people. Pure spit up. It's that good spit up. It was formula spit up. We're good to go.
All right, so what? ebaymotors.com? And search the Houston
Lord.
area.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we can deliver. We're all about the car sale. So there's my shameless plug for the week.
That'll be coming out of your paycheck.
Oh no.
So anyway, so the Mike Stoops stuff. All I can, people just keep asking. They're going to keep asking. They're going to keep coming with, conspiracy theories and, I heard this, and it's just all over the place. Like, I don't even know where the Youngstown state stuff started coming from, other than the fact that there's a job open. It's in Youngstown State, and then it turns into, Mike wants to get back around his mother. It's just like,
I love it.
where is this crap coming from? And and the same thing as the
I've been starting
Mike
a lot of it.
Mike and Lincoln got into a huge fight when they got back from the Rose Bowl, and he got fired.
No,
the
it was
next day.
wasn't the rumor that it was outside the locker room, which we were standing outside the locker room for not a good while, but
Yeah.
I walked past it. I mean, at least take the next step and say that their two wives got into it.
I
Heard it here
I can
first.
tell you absolutely, it has been
Start the rumor.
denied that any of that stuff, and I totally discounted it. It just stopped for a while, but then for some reason, when Jerry Schmidt took the job, all these Mike Stoops rumors started resurfacing again.
Well, they didn't like each other.
It's almost like Jerry Schmidt gave birth or rebirth to Mike Stoops' getting fired rumors, and I don't know how that happens.
Carey not getting fired. It's mutual. It's
Look,
mutual.
I'm going to play this again because this was a little over a week ago. This was the last time Lincoln Riley has had any kind of talk or discussion about the defense, about Mike Stoops in particular.
I know you don't, really care what the people are saying out there, but overwhelmingly, people are concerned about the defense after, giving up that many points. How do you address that moving forward? Do you have concerns yourself? Winning a championship seems like it takes a little bit better defensive product than maybe what you guys are putting on the field.
Yeah, I don't know. We won 3 of them, not the big one, but we've won 3 in a row. So I think people got to look back at the last 3 years too. We've had 3 straight Big 12 championships, 2 playoff appearances, and we've played in the Orange, Sugar, and Rose Bowl the last 3 years. So there's a lot that's working too. No doubt. Do we need to get better? Yeah, of course we do. We need to get better on all the sides of the ball. It's about putting one team together that can give yourself a chance to win it. We've done it here the last few years. Those will be conversations that we have as we kind of do our year in review and self-evaluate. I think a lot of that's going to improve just with recruiting. I think that's always the biggest issue. You look on the field at the two defenses, and one of them looked a little bit different than the other just physically. So we gotta continue to grow in that area, and I think we're starting to. I mean, the young guys that contributed this year. This class, you just take the guys that we just signed, and we're getting ready to sign some other pretty good ones here. I think that's getting ready to happen. So, but we gotta coach better. We gotta play better. We gotta recruit better. I mean, that's how you take steps forward on all three sides of it.
Do you still feel like Mike is the guy for you at defense coordinator? Because he's just taking a beating out there.
Yeah, that's part of this job. I'm sure all of us are taking a beating right now. That's a good thing is. People could say it, but I don't have to listen to it, and that's kind of part of how it goes. I get it. The coordinators, head coach, and quarterback are normally the people when you don't win a game that are going to take a beating, and probably the same people that after the Big 12 championship game when we hold down a good TCU offense and beat them twice in a row and win that everybody's singing your praises. That's the nature of the beast with this deal. So Mike's a really good coach. I do. I have a lot of confidence in him as I do our whole staff. To do what this staff and this program did this year with all the changes and all that, it's unprecedented. People better remember that too.
I'm not going to be naive and say, okay, we'll take everything Lincoln said there at face value. Because do I think that there's possibilities that things could happen? Yeah, absolutely I do. I mean, you still have to sign DaShaun White. You've got Nick Benito signed. You've got Brendan Radley-Hiles enrolling. But you still have some things to put to bed. You've got visits coming up, kids coming in. You're still trying to probably replace some of the numbers on your defensive line with what's happened with Du'Vonta Lampkin, deciding to leave early. But yeah, so I mean, I definitely think after signing day, could something happen? Sure, I could see something happening. I could see that Lincoln Riley's just trying to keep a united front. For recruiting purposes, doesn't want any thing getting out there. Sure, I believe all that stuff. But at the same time, the fact that people want him gone so bad and seem to be willing to go to any lengths to believe any rumor that's possibly out there, the climate is just ridiculous right now. I guess I just stunned everyone.
I kind of thought Eddie was going to dive.
No, I think if you keep him on through signing day, it's the ultimate shady thing that has ever been that's ever happened in Norman, and I think it's going to be used against you whether you move on without him or with him. So Why don't you just go ahead and make the move? I mean, I think if you keep him around just to sign DaShaun White, I think in a karma way you should win 6 games next year. I'm not saying that's what's happening, so don't mistake me for that. What I'm saying is, I mean, Lincoln could be telling the absolute truth that he's going to go move forward with Mike Stoops for one more year. And I think that's even more dumb. I think Mike Stoops should be gone. And I've said it now 2 weeks in a row. It should have happened 2 weeks ago.
I've been this way the entire time. The defense hasn't been good. If Lincoln Riley wanted to jettison almost all his entire staff, I could understand why. But I mean, don't this whole thing about you won't come out and call for his job. Why won't you do that? It's not my job to make you happy by calling for a coach's head.
I never get the call outs. Like, what does that do? Like, what as media members, I don't take myself seriously enough to be like, you must fire Bob or Mike Stoops or whoever. Like, I don't get what the purpose is of that other than to make fans feel good that we're as angry as they are. And I'm not. I'm not a fan. Like, I'm not going to get that wound up about it. I'm with Eddie. I think a change is better for everybody. I mean, but that's just my opinion. Like, I'm not going to be indignant if Mike Stoops isn't fired. Like, that's their call. They can do.
He is officially in a no-win situation.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's not healthy anymore.
No, I agree with that completely. Like I've said that to people before. Just knowing Mike, like how personal he wants to be great on defense. He wants a team that's dominant. But with all the criticism and how he takes criticism, I don't know if it's healthy for him to even be coaching at the University of Oklahoma anymore.
No, it's not healthy. I mean, they haven't been good. That's the other thing. It's like they've done the same thing for over the last 5-6 years. They haven't been good defensively. It's time to find somebody else that can bring at least, if anything else, just a new voice. Just a new set of eyeballs to look at it. And I think they tried to do that a little bit with Ruffin McNeil, but I think that's probably been overplayed as well.
Well, I'll say this. I would, if just from knowing what I know, you're better off with Mike Stoops as your defensive coordinator than just making Ruffin your defensive coordinator.
Oh, if they turned around and did that, you push the panic button, because that would not be good. I'm not going to say it'd be dumb, but that wouldn't be good.
Guys, because even if Mike put out a good defense next year, what's the narrative going to be? Oh, well, there was that one year. No, it's not going to change the storyline. Nobody's going to suddenly be impressed and think, okay, Mike Stoops has got it figured out now, or what? It's not going to change. And my problem with it, and I get so tired of it's the Big 12. You just can't put good defense together. Okay, that's fine. Even if you want to go with that as your argument, Oklahoma's finished top of the league once in the last 4 years. The other times it was 4th, 5th, and 5th in Big 12 defense. So it's not like you're comparing apples to oranges. It's apples to apples, and you're still not good within your own conference. Like there's other teams that are playing better defense. Iowa State this year played better defense. TCU, Texas. I mean, you go back to last year, Baylor was better defensively than Oklahoma was. Like that's a problem. And that's not something you can just pawn off on competition and certainly not talent level, because I don't care if DJ Ward is your starting defensive end. He'd start a lot of places in the Big 12.
Yeah. It's just kind of one of those things, I think, where it's gotten to a point, a breaking point. We're there. I just think we're there.
Yeah, and
that's not calling for anybody's job. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fixable at this point, going forward with the same people.
Is it a little tone deaf for Oklahoma? When I say that, I pretty much mean Lincoln, to not recognize that and be like, this is tarnishing you. This is making you look bad in the eyes of your fans and your donors and all these other people that think, even if they're wrong,
does he feel,
even if you want to say they're wrong.
Does he feel like he looks bad, though, after, I mean, let's face it, Josh, after the weekend, when you had Radley-Hiles and DaShaun White in the fold, you could at least sit there and say, okay, well, we're bringing in really highly recruited guys at least. Like, if you go, because I'm sure there's a part of Lincoln, I don't know how he's thinking about this exactly. I mean, you heard him talk there last week. There wasn't a lot of stammering. I mean, he believed, I felt like, in what he was saying. But if you go through another year of Mike, you're not a college football playoff team next year. You're just not. I can't see that in Kyler Murray's first year. A defense that's not great. I just don't see him really make. I mean, they could win the Big 12.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will call them their favorite. But it is. To me, the Sugar Bowl is the best you're going to do next year.
I think Lincoln Riley's really good at saying stuff that people want to hear. I think he's not a good liar, but I think he says a lot of things that I think just are on the front of everything, what people want to hear, or just the easy way out almost.
How do you mean in this case?
To me, the easy way out is calling for everybody to be fired.
But he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that to the media 2 days after the bowl game. He wouldn't sit there and say, we got to make all these changes, and Mike has to get fired, and he's just not going to do that.
He's saying the things Mike wants to hear?
I think he's saying the things that would be the least controversial.
Okay. All right, now I misunderstood.
I don't know if he truly believes that, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think he believes that if they recruit well and they go through this year and they don't go to a college football playoff and he has to get rid of Mike, at least they're going to have a pretty good stable of recruits on the defensive side of the ball. And if he is going to keep Mike, that's why he's keeping Mike. Because eventually he doesn't think it's going to hurt the long-term direction of the program.
I don't know. It's gotten to the point where I do think it is, though. It's so volatile. He's not going to get any credit if they do turn it around. It won't be because of Mike. It's literally a no-win situation right now.
And I think it's one of those things where maybe it is changing. I mean, because here's the thing, guys. What happens is when the noise gets so loud, eventually the donors hear it too, and they start to change their minds, and that's when things happen. I mean, that really is. You get the people that are the most behind the program and support it financially, and you can't battle that. You just can't win that fight. You can't go against your biggest supporters financially.
Especially when we're having the conversations we have about assistant pay and all that sort of thing. I mean, Oklahoma needs stuff, just built the south end zone. I mean, all these things those are the people you have to keep happy for those lines of communication to stay open. I guess more importantly, those lines of credit.
So anyway, yeah, I'm dealing with reading a thread on the put. Look, this whole thing about what I've said, people are like, there's a poster that's saying that they heard from a player that Mike said he's leaving. I'll be checking all this stuff out. We're doing the podcast now, so I can't. But then this whole thing, Carey said he's not going anywhere. I never said that. I said what Lincoln said. What I've always said is what we played. That's why I played that from Lincoln. Because he said what he said about Mike. That was his support for Mike. I asked him, is Mike the guy for you moving forward? And he said he doesn't care what people are saying out there. Mike's a good coach. You know, he gives all the credentials about, or all the bullet points about what type of season that they had. That's all I've ever said is what Lincoln has said. I've never said Mike's not leaving. So, shut up. I don't want to hear that crap. I've never, so the way I'm looking at it, I've never, put my back against the wall and said, this is definitely never going to happen. And that's mainly people mad because I won't come out and call for his head. Jared. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. God, the text messages just... You were talking about somebody's been losing their mind. One Jared Followell. Been losing his mind over the Mike Stoops situation. I'll wake up from a nap with 125 text messages.
You know who's taking it surprisingly well is my dad, Carey. And I know you know my dad and the level of, let's call it dedication to Oklahoma that is there. He took the loss very well. I thought he might be catatonic for a few days, but he has bounced back strong.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it may be the baby pictures are keeping him moving. I'm not sure what it is. So, but to Dad's credit, doing really well.
Okay, the Mike stuff. I'll tell you this: I am not digging in to a position one way or the other. I'm open to things changing, to things happening, to decisions being made. I think all that stuff. I think everything could change from what we've been talking. From what Lincoln said a week ago, that could change. And I said I'm not being naive when we first started talking about Mike Stoops. I'm open to just about anything happening. All right, so Josh, All-American, U.S. Army, All-American. You were down for some practices. You're down for the game. I know there was some even tense moments where you're. Game day, I think it started. There started being some rumors like, okay, Bookie could possibly go to USC, and then was it kind of game day when that was kind of floating around out there, and there was almost some uncertainty by everybody in the building about what he was going to do before he announced for Oklahoma?
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff. It started the day before when I heard from really one of the first sources that told me that Oklahoma had clearly taken the lead and really since that day had been pretty on point with what he was hearing, had told me that someone had passed on to him that Florida State might be the choice. And I said, and that was his last official, and there was a lot, there was some reason to think that maybe that could be the case. But talking to a few people, around Norman, just my sources, I didn't get the feeling they were that concerned about Florida State. The day of the game comes up, and all of a sudden I start hearing from some of, guys like Adam Guarine and some other people that USC was a real contender and maybe to keep an eye out. I got the feeling there was a little concern about USC. Obviously, just being the hometown school, for those that don't understand, Brendan Radley-Hiles is from IMG, or played his senior year at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, in the Tampa area, but is from Calabasas, California. He's from the Los Angeles area. So, Southern California kid, got a gigantic Inglewood tattoo on his arm. So, I mean, he's a Southern Cal guy. So there was a lot of thought that maybe USC could make a run at him. But I talked to a few people and even got some pretty good evidence of the information there right beforehand, probably about an hour and a half before his announcement, that if he would have gone to USC, he would have really, really pulled the wool over Oklahoma's eyes. That would have been and not to say that those things don't happen, guys. I mean, we've all done this long enough. We know that they do. But for him to do that to his good buddy TJ Pledger, who was, in the background of his Army announcement on the NBC, I mean, I just couldn't get there. I didn't buy that was a realistic possibility. I didn't think he would lead OU and TJ on and then pick something else. So that was kind of what I bet on. Obviously sticks with Oklahoma. We can get into how good he was. I mean, he might have had the play of the game with his tip drill interception to Jaden Woodby. That was, I think the second or third play of the game. It was just an incredible play. And really, and I tweeted it during the game, being up in the press box, just watching him work, even when the ball wasn't going his way, it's going to be really, really hard for some of those guys to keep him off the field next year. I mean, he is what you're looking for in a pure cover corner. He will go and man up on a receiver, push him up, and he's so good technically. But at the same time, unlike a lot of other good technician corners, he can turn and run. I mean, he's not just a guy that's well-versed in what you do. He can do it and has the athleticism on top of it.
Is he a guy that can come in and at least compete for a day one job? Or a job from day one. I watched that game. That was the first time I'd really actually seen him. I saw the clips that you got of him at practice, Josh, and obviously the one that's made the rounds is the one that we tweeted out with him breaking on the ball during practice. But I mean, that looks like a guy. If I had to make a decision, I'd say that he's the starter when they play Florida Atlantic next year.
Just based on what you saw in that game and what you know of Trey Norwood, who would you bet on?
Yeah,
I'd bet on him.
It's a no-brainer.
And I don't dislike Norwood. I thought he had a decent freshman year. But people I feel like his legend has, because basically he stopped the bleeding of Jordan Thomas. People are making him out to be a little better than he was. If you ask me which freshman was better when I watched him play, I'd take Trey Brown 8 days a week. Mm-hmm. I think Norwood just played at that other corner and it fit. But if you told me, I wouldn't even call you crazy if they wanted to let him compete with Motley. We've got to see what he does. I don't want to get too crazy, but it's not like Oklahoma's exceptional at cornerback. Frankly, you could make a pretty good case that it's less likely he doesn't start.
In a way, I mean, when was the last time OU on paper was that good at cornerback with guys returning? After they wrapped up Radley-Hiles, you look at the guys that they have coming back, the two Trays, Jordan Parker, Parnell Motley, Justin Broyles coming out of redshirt. It's a talented group. I mean, they should be infinitely better next year at the cornerback position. Just by getting older almost.
Well, and it forgets guys like I really like Miguel Edwards, even though I know Kerry Cooks has mentioned maybe playing him some at safety. Mm-hmm. I think maybe that's a relationship to what happens with Leon O'Neal, which we can get into. But Miguel Edwards is a really talented corner from Deerfield Beach in Florida. Starlin Baldwin is a guy that I think kind of like Trey Norwood. It would probably is very similar physically to Trey Norwood, kind of long and skinny right now. He'll need some time to grow into his body, but is a very good athlete. Is going to come off a knee injury. So I mean, there's some good depth starting to be acquired at cornerback. Now safety, they need to hit Leon O'Neal. I mean that to me that's the one where you're still not sure, because I don't think Robert Barnes, what you saw of him this year made you feel like, well, he'll just step in and it's going to be fine. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, really talented kid, and he may make that step, and it may just be a matter of him continuing to return from that injury his senior year at South Lake Carroll. But I don't know that you could say what you saw on tape is like, well, that's the guy. That's your guy. You know, that's your safety for the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, let's stay there, Josh. I mean, you talked to him, Leon O'Neal. I got a kick out of editing down the video because he might be the best interview in the 2018 cycle with everything that goes into it. He's an extremely good talker. How much, I guess, do you want to start with DaShaun White, then get to Leon O'Neal? Because I guess that would probably be the next line of questioning is how much does getting DaShaun White help Oklahoma with the pursuit of Leon O'Neal, with them being both having connections back into the A&M program?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, like Radley-Hiles, DaShaun White is committed since our last podcast. Army All-American linebacker. We started hearing word, really, I guess it was Friday afternoon, that something was going to happen on Saturday. And I couldn't really make heads or tails of it because I knew he wasn't on the announcement list. I had Army's, you know, media information that they send out, just like, you know, OU sends out to you guys all the basic press releases. And so I was getting all the information, and I knew he wasn't on the list, and I couldn't figure out why a guy would play an Army week and not do the national TV announcement, but still announce on the day of. So I kind of kept checking around, and finally DaShaun hit me Saturday morning and was kind of like, you know, okay, maybe something's happening here. And so that's when I recorded the audio. And for the people that have listened to my audio breakdowns of Brendan Radley-Hiles and DaShaun White and think that maybe I was over a sleeping baby or something, I wasn't. I was in literally the bowels of the Alamo Dome. There's this huge tunnel that runs all the way around the stadium, and I had to go about 50 yards past where I had ever walked in that stadium to try and find a quiet place that I could record it. And at the same time, me being this super, I don't know, I guess always, I don't know what word I want to use here, but I'm always worried that someone is going to overhear me saying something I shouldn't have said out loud and giving a story away. And DaShaun had kind of entrusted me with this, so I didn't want to say anything about him where somebody could hear that didn't need to hear it yet. So I kind of walk over, I'm like, kind of behind some rafters, and I'm doing but anyway, that's a whole other story. But it was, I think, with him deciding to announce, when A&M announced Mike Elko, I think it just made it possible for him to tell his mom, okay, they've made their hire, that's still not what I want to do, I want to go to Oklahoma. I think he had talked, you know, in the video interview that I did with DaShaun during check-in, he talked about wanting to see what what A&M was going to do at DC, kind of waiting for that to be announced. At the time, I took that as I want to go talk to him, I want to get his information. From what I can gather in hindsight, it sounds a lot like his mom had said, let's not rush anything, let's see what they do here. Once they make that choice, then we can make an announcement, because then you'll know all the factors. And once that choice was made, I think DaShaun went to his mom and said, okay, they made their hire. That guy doesn't do anything for me. I don't know him. I want to go play at OU where I'm comfortable. And he even said in the interview that we did after the game, you know, before he actually had announced publicly, where he talked about as the time went on with OU, he felt like he should have just he said something like, it maybe felt like I should have done this from the start. And then he kind of stopped short of that and was like, I just feel really good about this decision. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big comfort level, and it's kind of what we're just talking about with Mike and all the changes the coaching staff wants to see. If that stuff happens today, tomorrow, whatever, DaShaun White's back on the market. I mean, right. and as a recruiting guy, you can't make your decisions based on one player or two players or even one recruiting class. It's too big for that. But at the same time, people just need to know that's probably going to happen, and OU would have to play catch-up again. So we'll kind of see what happens. Now, Eddie, I know you kind of asked me to lead that into Leon O'Neal. I have talked so long, I'm going to let you have the mic for at least a second here to break up my monotony, and people are not just fast-forwarding through me.
I think that I guess we can come clean that, the OU courtship of DaShaun White has been, it seems like a long time coming. I think that a lot of people probably don't know that the night that I went down to go see DaShaun White, I think it was on his senior night. So it would have been, gosh, what would that have been? Middle of November? Is that right? Or maybe beginning of November? Right. We did an interview that night, and he was talking about being committed to Oklahoma. So, I mean, this is a decision I think that has been weighing on him, as you alluded to, for quite a while. And Oklahoma did a really good job of staying in contact with him. Making him a priority, I think, is something that he obviously really enjoyed. Who wouldn't? So, I don't think it was as much of a surprise as it was just the final end of this was a long time coming for Oklahoma to be able to get him. So, I think that moving forward, though, it certainly is good news for Oklahoma that they have him actually committed and, I think in a way working on Leon O'Neal. And I'm sure that was a big point of emphasis for a lot of guys, as you talked to down in San Antonio during the Army All-American Week. Oh, yeah. I mean, this was a huge deal for Oklahoma because Scoop talked about it last week that Oklahoma has had very minimal presence at the top of Texas high school recruiting this year. I think it's with his commitment, and if they were to land O'Neal, I think it would give them something like 3 of the top 30 guys in the state of Texas this year. I mean, which is just unbelievably bad for, with Darrell Simpson and DaShaun White. You add O'Neal, then you've got another guy. So it's really a strange cycle for Oklahoma, and for them to be having all the recruiting sets they're having and to have such a minimal presence in Texas, to me, that's got to feel pretty good for Oklahoma because this is not going to be your normal year in Texas. Now, 2017 probably wasn't either, where Oklahoma really cleaned up in Texas, and I think you're going to find some middle ground between those two things, but it shows you that Oklahoma can go national if they need to. They can stick in Texas and win some recruiting battles if they need to. But to kind of get back so we can round out this whole conversation of Leon O'Neal. Leon was DaShaun's roommate the whole week at Army. I think he was one of the first people that DaShaun told, okay, I'm going to do this Saturday. DaShaun even talked about it, letting Leon know about it and his kind of getting his reaction to it. I spoke to Leon after the game, and Eddie, I was going to ask, because I haven't sat down and gone back and watched the interview I did with Radley-Hiles after the game. Mm-hmm. Did we leave on the part where at the very end he's like, we're getting Leon coming too or something like that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah. Okay. Because it was so long after the interview had actually ended, I was like, I wonder if Eddie even saw that. Like if he ran it all the way out. Now that you say that, I don't know if I did. Was it at
the part was on there? I remember where he was like shouting to somebody off screen and then laughing.
Okay. We'll have to check. In case it's not there and people don't know what I'm talking about, I teased it on Twitter, and I thought, well, surely someone would bring it up to me if we didn't have it on there. After Brendan Radley-Hiles and I were done with the interview, we're sitting there, and I'm starting to kind of put things away. And, I mean, I haven't even gone to turn off the recorder yet. Like, it's just,
we probably – I don't think I left that in.
And he kind of looks at the camera and goes, we're getting Leon too. And I thought, well, and that's kind of a lot of guys I wouldn't take it that serious. Bookie has a lot of connection with these guys. I told the story the other day. When I got to Army check-in and Leon and I were about to go do our interview, he sees TJ and Radley-Hiles walk in and immediately stops and goes over. He's like, I got to go say hey to Bookie. I'll be right back. Like, one's from Houston and the other one's connected to Florida and Southern California. And there's enough connection there for him to go say hello. So that says something. And then DaShaun White and Leon were very open that they pretty much of the guys in their recruiting cycle, that's the guy. The other one was the one that they felt closest to. DaShaun really likes Leon. Leon really likes DaShaun. And so I think there is a lot of bounce for that from OU. From in one day neither of those guys being part of Leon's potential class to both of those guys being part of Leon's potential class. Plus, he saw guys like Ron Tatum all week. He saw Ronnie Perkins all week. Daryl Simpson, Bray Walker. I mean, and Daryl and Bray, quiet though they may be, everybody knew when they walked into a room because they were the two biggest human beings there. I mean, both Bray, in any other room, Bray was the biggest guy, and then Daryl would walk in, and you're like, holy crap, he's even bigger. So Oklahoma, excuse me, Oklahoma had a really big presence at the Army game. And that's why, in our signing day preview that I did, and for those people listening, it's a free thing I put up on the board or up on the site. I'll continue to update it as we get closer and closer to signing day, and my predictions kind of change and news kind of changes. That's a cool feature that a lot of people usually end up liking. But to get away from that, I picked Leon to Oklahoma in that one, and it's built largely on his relationship with Bookie, DaShaun White, and how much he likes Carey Cooks and has liked his previous visits. Now, I still think he's going to take officials to Georgia and Clemson this month. He may return to A&M to go kind of see what's going on there with all their changes. I don't think he'll get back to Oklahoma again, but maybe he will. So there's a lot still in play with Leon O'Neal. I am far, far from confident that he will end up at Oklahoma, but more than probably since last summer, I think Oklahoma is absolutely right there with anybody else in his recruitment.
That thing that you brought up with Radley-Hiles I thought was really interesting, and you kind of saw it just from not being in San Antonio, just watching it on Twitter and how everything went down after he committed. But he might be one of the most popular kids in this 2018 class. I don't think that's too far to say. I don't think that's crazy to say.
No, it's not. I mean, he was one of those guys that, like, I remember we were at practice on Tuesday, and there were some people up in the stands watching, and you could tell they were like, it was like a kid with like a Spurs jersey on, and he's like chanting Bookie's name. Like, he's really got a lot of credibility, not only with fans and people that recognize him, but also the other players really gravitate toward him. It's interesting because when you kind of are back from him, you kind of expect a kind of standoffish, like, when we did our first interview on Tuesday, I thought, man, this is going to be bad. And I had asked Adam Guarine, should I be ready for this not to be very good? And he goes, no, he's really good. And I'm watching him, and he's one of those guys that's got, I don't know if a good guy way to say this, but I know my wife, when she sees a girl that looks like this, resting bitch face. Like, she looks mad all the time. He looks pissed off. And you're like, this is going to go badly. And then as soon as I put the mic on, man, he's awesome. He's talking, and he's really open. And then after the game, he was kind of running, and they were trying to get everybody off the field. And you guys knew I was DMing with you. Like, I was getting concerned that I wasn't going to be able to get him to do an interview. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, let's do this thing. Because I had told him, hey, if it's OU on Saturday, I want to talk to you after the game. And so he sat there for 4 or 5 minutes, and we did the full interview. And he never acted like, oh, I got to get out of here, I'm in a rush. Like, he was very patient with me. But just like I said, he's not the guy that you would expect from afar is not what you get when you talk to him. And I think kids, I think some of the guys are almost a little intimidated by him, which is funny because he's 5'9", 180 pounds. But then when they meet him and talk to him, they're like, oh, this is a really cool guy. He's really easy to deal with. So I think not only in 2018 is he going to help Oklahoma, but in 2019, when they're going after a lot of big-time guys in Southern California, Jonathan Perkins, Chris Steele, some other guys down that list, he could be one of those guys that's hosting a lot of recruits and making a lot of big moves for Oklahoma.
Just to round it out, I guess, Ron Tatum and Ronnie Perkins, they were pretty impressive on Saturday. I know that it sounded like Ron Tatum kind of had an up-and-down week, but probably more so, I think you could say, a better week than it probably started. Would that be the best way to put it? And then Ronnie Perkins is a guy, I think, just watching him in the game, he's going to be on campus at the end of the weekend. He's a guy that I think you could probably rely on contributing in 2018 for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Ronnie doesn't play next year. With his ability to get on campus, go through workouts, Oklahoma not really having any guy at defensive end that you just say, yeah, that's the dude right there. That's the guy. So I think I would expect him to be part of the rotation. And you're dead on with, and I guess of all of OU's commitments, to kind of finish my Perkins thought, of all the OU commits, I thought he was clearly the one that had the most solid week. Like, there was no variation in what you saw. There was no questions. Like, you know what Ronnie Perkins is. He's going to be a really good, potentially a little better than that college football player. Like, I don't know that he's a superstar. I don't know that he has that range in his game, but Ronnie Perkins is going to be a very good college football player. He will help Oklahoma win games. Ron Tatum is the opposite of that. Ron Tatum was up and down all week, but man, when Ron Tatum flashes, he can do some stuff not many other guys can do, especially at 275 or so pounds. He is a special talent. I think when we look back on this class, in-state class in Oklahoma, with Josh Proctor, Bray Walker, Ron Tatum, and a couple of guys I'm sure I'm forgetting. I'm not sure I'm forgetting. I know I'm forgetting. There is Jalen Redmond. God, that's the really bad one. With those guys, I mean, those guys all, you could make a case, have the skill sets and the physical makeup to be high-level NFL draft picks someday. Now, they probably won't all get there because there's several question marks with each one of those guys. But if it all comes together for those guys, this could go down maybe not as good as that 2006 class with Sam Bradford and Gerald McCoy and Jermaine Gresham and even Dominique Franks, who had a nice NFL career. But it could be the closest thing we've seen to that because of just how good they are. And Tatum, like I said, when he turns it on, that's a guy that he's a 3 years and done guy for OU. If he can be that good, snap in and snap out, instead of I'm really good for a couple plays and then I disappear for a quarter.
In a weird way, the most interesting thing to come out of San Antonio without being down there was that picture of Ron Tatum and Ronnie Perkins that they tweeted out together, standing next to each other. Ron Tatum, I don't think people realize how big he is, Josh.
He is, I mean,
he kind of made Ronnie Perkins look a little small.
Guys, I mean, and Ronnie Perkins is 6'3", 260. I mean, for those who have seen those pictures, keep that in your mind when you're looking at that. Ron Tatum is, and it's not like, don't get me wrong, like Ron Tatum's got a little bad weight on it, but it's not crazy. He's not awful looking. Like he can afford to lose probably 10 bad pounds. But I think his body, he's just beginning to fill out. He's getting bigger. I mean, Eddie, you remember that skinny kid we saw in Kansas City 2 years ago? Like, Ron doesn't look.
It is
like
night
that
and
guy.
day. Night and day difference between the two.
If what's interesting about Tatum is, and I know he doesn't like this idea and he doesn't want to do this, and I don't even know that it fits his game that well, but if Oklahoma went back to a four-man front, he is what you're looking for as a three-technique defensive tackle. He is super athletic. He's really long. He's got some natural ability as a pass rusher. Like, he goes from defensive end being a good athlete with great size to moving inside and being a three-tech that has good size and is an incredible athlete. So it's going to be really interesting to see what OU chooses to do with him and how his body kind of develops and what direction it goes. And, of course, what the new strength and conditioning coach will do with him. But he is just to me, he's one of the guys that will tell you what this class is.
Yeah.
If Ron Tatum reaches the level he can be at and Bray Walker does the same, this is a class that can take OU to a national championship. If those two guys don't, this class is going to be looked at as a disappointment, in my opinion, unless somebody just comes out of nowhere.
It's talking about Ron Tatum playing inside. It's funny the things that happen when guys get on campus, because I remember Mark Andrews was not going to play tight end, and all of a sudden he won the Mackey, and the rest is history. Oh,
and his brother listens to the pod. I remember his brother would get a little irritated with me when I referred to him as a tight end, and it was just you can be a good wide receiver or you can be a freaking great tight end, and he chose the smarter path, and he's going to be probably a first-round pick because of it.
Well, he is a guy that is leaving early. You have Orlando Brown leaving early. And we kind of got surprised by a guy leaving early.
Well, you weren't surprised.
About Du'Vonta Lampkin?
You broke the news.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Well, when I first heard the news, I was like, are you shitting me? Are you kidding me, really? Du'Vonta Lampkin leaving early? What has Du'Vonta Lampkin done?
It's a slightly worse decision than Charles Walker made. I mean,
well, at least
we know how bad that decision was.
I mean, I'd say Du'Vonta Lampkin is a huge advantage over Charles Walker.
It kind of goes in line, though, with, I think what we think we know about Du'Vonta Lampkin, everything that went down and how he signed with Texas.
He ain't about the school life.
It just, it's not him, and, good luck to him, but there's a reason why you have to list prerequisites when you, or have to have prerequisites, or have to put a resume down when you look for a job.
Must have had more than one sack to be drafted.
Yeah. I mean, he had one more sack than me at OU.
That was kind of a common joke.
And I never even played football at OU.
I mean, look, he is a guy that's a very talented, player. Does he have the work ethic needed in order to be a great player? I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah.
I think he was lucky that he had a guy like Ruffin McNeil come in this year and work with him and be patient with him and motivate him and get as much out of him as he did. Because let's be honest, his first year resulted in him being suspended for the second half of his second year, or the first half of his second year. Like, that kid was headed towards burnout lane.
Which, it's time and time again we see this happen and unfold, but I just don't understand how that happens. Like, you have been gifted your body. I don't understand how somebody can become so lazy that they don't. That's
kind of what it is.
They never understand it, or they never wake up to it. And Josh, you see it, I'm sure, all the time, even more than when they get to campus. But I just don't understand how kids can be gifted a certain physical set and then just never take advantage of it. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you're over 6'6" and haven't been athletic your entire life, I kind of hate you.
The thing with Lampkin, it's guys. Would you rank this decision worse than Dominique Alexander's?
I mean, Dominique Alexander is still in the league.
Yeah, Dom at least had something to fall back on.
Because I think there is some circumstance to be considered there. I don't think he would have made another roster in the league.
But wasn't Dominique Alexander all Big 12 at one point?
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I'm saying. But also Alexander is a 6 foot, 230 pound linebacker, where Lampkin has the physical crap they're looking for. I mean, I get it from that perspective. But literally, I was thinking about what tape is he going to show scouts when he goes to meet with them? Yeah, did you see me get Kenny Hill? I got him right there, one arm. Did you see that? Okay, that's all I've got. So I hope we can rewind.
But there's
that one
more
again
where that came from.
In the upcoming seasons for your team.
In fact, I've barely played long enough to where a lot of that's left inside me. I haven't used up any of it.
You don't have to worry about any of the Charles Walker syndrome. I've barely been hit, so it's going to be fine.
And I'm good for 30 to 35 snaps a game. Nothing more, nothing less.
If you have oxygen tanks on the sideline. So I like Lampkin, it's funny that we went from Tatum to Lampkin because that's what Tatum reminds me of. It's just, does he want to be that guy? And that was always the question with Lampkin. Because there was no question in high school. I mean, you guys came to that Houston camp where he probably went 5 reps when other guys were going 15. But when he'd go on those 5 reps, you're like, holy crap. Because, I mean, he was the guy, if you kind of all bus squad. If you got a team off the bus, that's the dude you want to get off first because he's a big, bad-looking dude.
Lampkin also seems like the type of guy that is probably swayed by others, maybe. Do you think that he went out to Los Angeles knowing that was going to be his decision, Carey?
Oh, yeah.
I almost feel like he stayed out in Los Angeles and was like, you know what? I like this life. I like what's going on right now. Maybe talk to an agent, and all of a sudden he's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go
I think he, in his own mind, he had known for a while. I remember somebody was reposting kind of a tweet he had about, can't believe this is the last time we were going to play on Owen Field with Obo and somebody else.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, there was some guy that replied to him after that, like, we're just so glad that you're going to be back next year. I was just like, well.
Guess what, buddy? No, I'm not.
But he didn't respond to him. It wasn't like he said, can't wait to come back next year. And the other thing is everybody's like, well, would he even have been eligible to play next year? And that's the thing. I know the coaches wanted him back. If he was having eligibility problems, they would have found a way to get him eligible. But then again, if he was having eligibility problems, he probably didn't want to put in the work. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where guy didn't like school, guy didn't like applying himself in the classroom, didn't really like working out too much either, didn't want to get hurt. He's defensive tackle, he's big. He put a little bit on film. Why not do it? I mean, he wanted to do it. He probably didn't even need an agent to talk him into do it, although I'm sure one did. But I know that I was told, I can't remember the timeline. It's just been so nuts since we got back. The first day that people got wind that he was thinking about leaving, like they had Baker call him and try and talk him out of it. And then he couldn't talk him out of it. And then the next day it was just...
Well, it kind of goes with what you reported. Like every person that has come in contact with them were like, you sure about this?
Yeah.
Like, are you positive?
You know what you're really getting yourself into. And it'll be one of those things like Charles Walker, like he got even less of an opportunity than I thought he would.
Yeah.
Like
I think it had a lot to do with teams taking on that concussion thing.
He got a tryout with the Saints. It wasn't even a free agent. It was a free agency tryout. Didn't make that, and then immediately got signed to the practice squad for like the Eagles, and wasn't even there for
not a month.
Yeah, a month.
Maybe not even like 2 weeks.
Because I don't even know if he practiced while he was there, or he did practice and he got banged up.
I think. Don't you think, though, that probably had more to do with that concussion thing? Like, that is something, that, and especially in the climate of the NFL and just football in general, like, teams are not willing to. They can find another guy that you can beat up in practice.
Yeah, but they don't mind. They don't mind putting quarterbacks right back on the field.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think the NFL gives a shit about concussions.
Oh, behind closed doors,
well,
probably
like
not.
Goodell does, but the coaches don't.
No. They're trying to win.
There's absolutely no protocol that says you have to keep a guy out if he loses consciousness. Even.
You know who else really doesn't care? The players.
No, they don't.
They don't. Like Russell Wilson was trying to get back out there a few weeks ago when he clearly had his bell rung, and that's him. That's his own livelihood and concern. And Russell Wilson, one of the more thoughtful, intelligent guys. It seems like he has things going on outside of football, and he just wants to play ball. Like, I mean, that's so. I mean, we can put it all on everybody else. The players have to care too.
Yeah, no, it's really kind of at a crossroads. The sport is for sure, especially with everything that's going on these days.
There was some good news. Rodney Anderson, who Josh, I know you were a big part of tracking this down, and obviously, you being close to the Katy program, and Rodney and his family and his mom. I remember back to the K-State game when his mom was up there for that game, and he had the game winner, and the kind of the scene on the sideline was very emotional between those two. But I know Josh, he had kind of probably didn't talk to Lincoln Riley about it, but it sounds like he and his family kind of did have some discussions about it, from what you were able to find out.
Yeah, because I was checking with a few people, and on not only him, but when we started to hear the Abdul Adams stuff, which I know we'll get into, it's funny. I mean, you guys know how these conversations go. Sometimes you get some of the best info when you're not actually asking for it. And I had said something along the lines to someone like, I wonder if Abdul is kind of waiting out what Rodney's going to do, when he makes his decision. And the person was kind of like, well, what decision? And I said, well, I thought they were just kind of being deliberately ignorant, I guess. And I said something like, well, when he's going to do the NFL. And it was very much oh, yeah, that they talked that over with the family. That's done. That's not happening. Oh, well, I mean, it was just so matter of fact that I was like, well, that, and I know where I got it from, and I trust the source. I'm like, well, okay. So it sounds like he just went back home and they talked it over a little bit. And I don't want to kind of guess because I don't want to say that I know the inner workings of what the conversation was, but you have to assume that with, like we've talked about in the pod, with his injury history and all that's gone on, he really had a great second half of the season and did almost nothing in the first half. So you've got to think they want to come home or come back to Oklahoma, put one full year together like he did. And God, guys, if he puts a year together, a full year like the year he put together towards the end, he might be in New York City next December.
Right. Well, that, and I think when you combine all of that, Josh, with the running back class that's coming out this year, it wouldn't be the best one to just throw your name in there with, kind of blindly almost. Because I think there's a lot of really, really good college running backs coming out this year.
Oh, absolutely. It's, you look, and with all the guys, and as
you got Michelle and Chubb both
yet?
coming out.
Saquon Barkley, Bryce Love. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a really
Has
good
guys
group.
announced? Yeah.
Josh Adams from Notre Dame.
Guys from Washington, he announced yesterday. Is that right?
From LSU.
Yeah, from LSU. I mean, it's a very good class of running backs.
It is. It is.
You would almost think a Gesser. Is that the guy from Washington? Or guys?
Jason Gesser, not quarterback from years ago.
Who is their running back that's really good?
Oh, Gaskin.
Gaskin. Yeah, Miles Gaskin.
Sometimes
he
I
in the
forget
draft
Washington plays football.
I don't know.
I like
that
Gaskin
Eddie,
kid a lot.
Guys, that's a conversation we should have. Like when you were a high school guy and coming out, if you could have had your choice of these are the 5 official visits I would take, Washington would have been on my list. I love Seattle. Seattle's one of my favorite cities in the whole world. Let's see. Miles Gaskin, I think he returns, Carey.
Okay.
I'm not seeing anything about him going to the NFL draft.
Hell,
so
he might be a sophomore for all I know.
Yeah, I'm not that. I wouldn't claim that I know it that well, so he may be coming back.
I love that kid though. He's good.
Yeah. Oh, it's great speed, explosive guy. So
he's a little Sproles type kind of, with better size.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean Anderson, he could really explode next year if he has a similar type. And I really think the main thing is just him staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what he can do for himself more than anything. I mean, he could rush for 1,500 yards. Nothing spectacular, but something pretty decent. And he's going to be one of the higher guys on the board next year.
I mean, it makes sense for Abdul Adams if he's going to be the, quote unquote odd man out. That is
I hate to see that though.
But he is.
I think he's a good player.
He's a very good player, but he's not going to get carries over Rodney Anderson and Trae Sermon.
There are times when Trae Sermon needs to be a little bit more deliberate in his
He was a freshman.
style.
I think he was a freshman.
But still.
He almost killed the Georgia defensive back.
Yeah, it was really good. The guy was that guy not already up in the air a little bit though?
He ran his ass over though. That is. I mean, I think if you're the Georgia guy, you're I was trying to tackle him, but yeah,
it was one of the better trucks that you'll see. But my point is, if you have Trae Sermon running shotgun, smoke draw stuff, that's not his biggest forte. To me, Abdul Adams is a guy that you can put back in the eye and have him run toward the line of scrimmage. He's much more deliberate.
Okay.
He can pick his holes better. They're different types of runners. And if Rodney Anderson got hurt again, you'd love to have Abdul Adams still on your team.
Abdul Adams isn't the odd man out. Marcellus Sutton.
Absolutely.
Is that an odd man out candidate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's got to go somewhere small, right? We're gonna hear you transferred to UCO or something, right? There's just no spot for him that makes any sense if he wants to play at all.
He's not playing in front of
worse version of Roy Finch.
Yeah.
Well, because think about next year. You telling me he's going to get carries over your freshman superstar TJ Pledger? Hell no.
He might not even be allowed to look TJ Pledger in the eye.
Look away. Look away.
Eyes down.
Eyes down, boys.
At what point in the season did Marcellus Sutton get kicked off of kickoff return?
They would throw him out there once, and then he'd take a knee, and you'd never see him again. It was really weird.
It was it was part of his scholarship requirements. He had to have one. They wanted to make sure he could still finish out this semester. Okay, he's going to field one kick.
I'm guessing that Jeff Badette must have had some kind of season-long nagging injury.
He was never quite the same after he got nailed into the wall up in Stillwater.
Yeah,
on that touchdown.
Took out that cheerleader.
I forgot about that. Mm-hmm.
Hope he got some ass out of that.
But Carey, you were kind of talking about Abdul, and I think now he's gonna have to come back from the injury. Kennedy Brooks is the kind of guy you're talking about. Like, he's a north-south guy. He wants to hit the hole. Like, I think if Oklahoma's missing that kind of ingredient, he could be that guy real easily. He fits that role pretty nicely.
I guess I really haven't thought about it this way, and it's probably because Kennedy was injured throughout the entire year and missed his entire freshman season. But OU's now taken I guess I was going to say they've taken the best offensive player out of the DFW area for the last 2 years, but I forgot that Mordecai was from Waco. So never mind. I just made a point that wasn't even a good point.
Screwed it up, but you could argue that I guess it'd be
Syntax, North Tex.
Well, I mean,
North-Tex?
Jason McClellan,
yeah,
for 2020.
Okay,
so, I mean, that's you've got some grasp in reality there. That's all right. So, but yeah, I mean, and guys, I'll tell you, we won't get into it too much because I know the pod is not recruiting crazy, but the stuff I'm hearing in 2019 and the start that Oklahoma already has with guys like Stogner, who was outstanding at the Under Armour game. Or at the Under Armour Future 50 thing, Isaiah Spiller, Spencer Rattler, the stuff I'm hearing on those guys and some of the other guys that Oklahoma is serious about, it's 2019 could be, it won't have the quantity of 2017 and 2018 because I think it's going to be a smaller class, probably around 20.
We'll see who gets processed.
You could, I mean, that you never know. That's absolutely true. But I guess also I don't see the early NFL guys coming through, because you always knew Mark Andrews, Orlando Brown, those guys were kind of close. But you're right, there'll be some processing for sure. But I really like what that class is starting to look like if Oklahoma can finish. Obviously we're over a year away, so there's a lot to finish, or I guess 11 months away. But 2019 could be a really, really good class for Oklahoma with a lot of quality, maybe more so than quantity. But I still think, I was talking to Adam Guarine a lot this weekend. Spencer Rattler, I don't even know that people appreciate how good that guy is. He's got a chance to be special.
Think he's going to be like Patrick Mahomes type guy?
He's got a little of that to him. I know what you're talking about. There's a little something there. He definitely has plenty of confidence. He'll make all the throws.
He's bigger, though, than even he is, isn't he?
Who's that? Rattler bigger than Mahomes?
Yeah.
No, I mean, Rattler's probably 6'1.5".
Oh, okay. I thought he
6'2".
might be closer to 6'3", 6'4" guy.
No. He's, what's so funny, and I was talking, Guarine had that exact comment. He goes, he's so skinny that he looks a little taller than he is, but, he's one of those guys. And some guys are just born to throw the football. Like, that's what he feels like. Because it's not about refinement or, he can, he'll run the offense perfectly. Like, he's going to do some things outside of what the offense is created to do that are just, that will surprise people. He'll need time and he'll have to develop, but I think he could be maybe OU's next great quarterback.
We'll see. It'll be hard to beat out Tanner Mordecai once he takes down Kyler Murray and Austin Kendall.
Oh no. It's been so does this count as another prediction? Like the board's going to
No, I'm not. Yeah, I know. I don't want to be quoted. I'm getting misquoted on enough stuff as it is during this podcast. And yes, I am mad, bro. So suck it. I do what I want. And I delete shit if I don't like it.
We should probably take a minute and explain that. People we all have fun, but when you start misquoting us, we're going to take that seriously because people that don't know.
I don't screw around with the whole, Carey said this when it's a misquote. No, I don't. That's one thing I take very it's something that we work really hard to build our reputation, which is, that we're not a bunch of slappies. So that's just unfair. I'm sorry. That's one thing I'm just not going to. I will screw around about all kinds of stuff, but that's just one thing with me. That's kind of my one rule. My one little caveat is I'm not going to let you sit there and say that I said stuff that I'm not, even if you're joking. Even if you can't bust my balls that way. There's no ball busting that's included. That's like saying, well, your mother's a whore. I mean, you can't. There's certain trash talk that's just not allowed. I'm not calling anyone's mother a whore.
Because that's one of the few lines I don't like to go across.
I bet there are a couple whorish mothers out there.
To be able to trust us is the whole point.
I'm not saying that about anybody.
Why are we here?
Yeah. The trust is all we have, people.
If
we lose the trust, we've got nothing. Well, we've got a podcast. I'm glad we can fit one in. Kind of get back on schedule. Glad I can get over all the being sick, even though I'm still stuffed up a little bit. Eddie has avoided it all. I don't know if you saw the map. They put out a map of like all the states in the U.S. that have like flu emergency.
Mm-hmm.
They were all red. It looked like the end of the Planet of the Apes, when the guy gets on the flight and he starts flying around from place to place and all the population gets sick and then the apes take over.
Sure, Dean Blevins is going to report about it.
He and the Rosser. Dean's had some interesting... I keep seeing his name showing up everywhere. But you know what? I'm not going to rip other people since I just got sensitive about people misquoting me.
Yeah, but you're not losing it.
Stop it! I have to work with Dean.
I'm worried about people's mental health, Carey.
Back to football, Eddie.
Yeah, there's never been a more back to football moment than that.
So anyway, anything you guys want to just hit on before we get out of here? I think we've hit most of the big news items that have happened. Last few days.
Definitely. The Trae Young train rolls on this week. TCU coming into town on Saturday.
Nice getting a win over Texas Tech just to avoid that 2-game.
Yeah.
I watched TCU and Texas play last night in
What a
double
game.
overtime.
That was an awesome game.
Did you watch that?
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad for TCU, but also, like, if you're ever going to feel okay for Texas,
last night
right now.
Yeah, last night was a night that they should win with Andrew Jones
getting leukemia.
diagnosed with leukemia.
That's terrible.
During the middle of the season, too, which is just
Shaka Smart was crying during the pregame, or was it the postgame?
It was during the postgame after he acted like they just won the Final Four, which...
They got a guy with leukemia. I mean...
Damn it, Eddie, that's too far.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's
They won a double overtime game after they just found out.
It was a game that they needed to win, too, so I understand it. That was a little much. TCU, though... TCU,
they're good.
They are good.
They're inside guys are just hard to handle.
They are 1-3 now in the conference.
I know.
Like, this conference is just
it's brutal,
killing people. Which I think as OU,
TCU, they never should have lost at home to OU. That's what's killing them.
No, it is. And then you lose at home to Kansas. Like, you're not going to win you lose twice at home. You're not winning the conference. It's just not happening.
I'm a little surprised that Tech went into Kansas and won that easily after seeing them.
Kansas they're struggling. Iowa State had them on the brink on Tuesday night, and they used the last 5 minutes to kind of
Mikhailuk or whatever.
Had a big pull away. Svi. Is that how you say it?
Is that his first name?
Svi. Svi.
I don't even Mikhailuk. I would just want to call him Mikhailuk, like Julius Mikhailuk from Iowa State. It's Mikhailuk or something.
He's that Freak-a-leak on the. They need to play that song after he scores every time.
I'm sorry, Josh. We totally interrupted you there.
No, you're fine, guys. We know basketball is not my. I just sit in my film room and watch football guys all day. So that's how I spend my January and February.
I wish I could avoid watching the Thunder. To be honest with you.
Let's not go down that painful path. Is there anything in sports that consistently is more underrated than the Big 12 in basketball? I feel like every year everybody's like, oh, it's Kansas and a bunch of, well, maybe. There's one other team that everybody will think is going to be good.
This year particularly. I mean, it's the best I think it's ever been.
They would get more respect if it's kind of how the Big 12 does everything. They're really good, and then when the lights turn on, they shit down their leg.
Yeah.
I mean, look at West Virginia. They play really good defense in this league.
They're number 2 in the country
but
right now.
They'll be in the tournament, and they'll get beat in the first weekend or early in the second weekend because the game gets refereed a lot differently than in the Big 12.
Yeah,
and then all of
right.
a sudden, those guys are in foul trouble in the first half.
Trae Young got the holy hell beat out of him up there in Morgantown.
Yeah.
Like, the refs in the NCAA tournament would not allow that type of game to happen.
And especially with a star, it just doesn't happen like that.
No.
And OU is on the fortunate side of that this year that he gets a lot of calls. Like,
yeah.
I think that there's a point where, like, even watching, I think I tweeted something during the game on Tuesday night that every time Trae Young is breathed on, people think he's getting fouled these days. I feel like he benefits a lot just from being Trae Young.
Since like the late 80s, since the Tubbs teams, is this the OU team most built to succeed in March?
Well, you need good backcourt play, and they've certainly have that.
They've got 2 bigs that do as long as they don't get in foul trouble with Latin or McNeese.
They're more than serviceable.
Plus, you got
that's probably not giving them
really.
enough credit.
It depends on Manic. I mean, he didn't play well at West Virginia.
Well, Bob Brisbane kind of threw it out there on Tuesday night during the game thread. Over the next couple of weeks, I think we're really going to learn about this team just as far as can they get Christian Doolittle back in the swing of things.
Flow, yeah.
And he played his most minutes on Tuesday night against Tech.
He could have had one sweet-ass jam last night, and he just missed it. He fell out of his hands.
He got blocked on one, too. But I think
he's close.
It does feel like he's close. And, Trae Young was named a Wooden Award mid-season top 25 this afternoon. So,
all right. Well, we've got to wrap this up because we're going really long. We got recruiting weekend coming up as well. Josh, you want to just throw out a couple names there?
Yeah, the two confirmed official visitors that we know are Moro Ojomo from Katy, Texas, Katy High. Obviously, last guy you signed there was Matt Diamond, another defensive lineman. Ojomo is a guy that really I don't think OU was that serious about even as early as December 1st. And from what I can gather, a couple of coaching staffs that have played Katy this year pretty much told OU, you're crazy if you're not on this guy, and went back, watched the tape. The one I always point to is the North Shore game where he really had a great night. Oklahoma, basically, there was a thought that maybe they'd waited too long, but for him to take his official visit this weekend, Oklahoma has a chance to really kind of set themselves up, maybe even take the lead in his recruitment. Now, they'll have to ride it out for a few weeks. But he is a unique guy. I mean, you've got Jordan Kelly, who's a pure nose. You've got Ronnie Perkins and Jalen Redmond and Ron Tatum, who are in types. This is a three-technique kind of guy. I mean, this is a unique guy that can do a lot of different stuff on the defensive line. And I think Oklahoma, if you told them they could have maybe two guys, I think he might be the other choice aside from Leon O'Neal. So this is a guy OU plans to push for. The other is Tank Jenkins. I know a guy that Bill Bedenbaugh has recruited hard for a long time, has said repeatedly he would take visits. They did not happen. I'm still skeptical about this weekend because I've been burned so many times. But if he makes that trip, Oklahoma has every chance to land his commitment. He's been big on OU for a while. I know back in the summer a lot of people thought he was going to make a trip to Oklahoma unofficially and commit then. So this could come together for OU, and it will be interesting because I've kind of been projecting OU to maybe have one or two more spots, but if both guys wanted to commit this weekend, there's no way they're saying no to Leon O'Neal, so Oklahoma would have to find a way for three. I think it would work out, but it's just going to be interesting the spot that would put them in, and really we would go from this weekend forward maybe tracking one player. I can't even fathom how crazy that is leading into signing day.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40. We had plenty of U.S. Army. You had some Jerry Schmidt, Mike Stoops, Bill Bedenbaugh, transfers, departures, all that stuff. So we'll be back again next week to talk some more about the latest of whatever happens next with OU football and OU football recruiting, and even the Trae Young show a little bit. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Eddie Radosevich. Thanks to Josh McQuistion. Till next week, we'll see you back here. When we see you back here on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.